Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Friday Transportation Seminar. My name is Jennifer Dill. I am the Director for the Transportation Research and Education Center at Portland State University, and I will be introducing and moderating today's seminar. Our Friday transportation seminars have been a tradition since the year 2000. These seminars are usually held live on the Portland State University's urban campus that is located on the ancestral homelands of the Multnomah, Cathlamet, Clackamas, Tumwater, Watlala bands of the Chinook, the Tualatin Kailapuya, and many other indigenous nations of the Columbia River. It is important to acknowledge that we are here because of the sacrifices forced on the indigenous ancestors of this place, remember these communities, and honor their legacy, lives, and descendants. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, today's seminar is hosted fully online. Today, I am very pleased to have 4 people joining us. We have Roshan Kurian, Huijin Tan, Nathan McNeil, and John MacArthur, who will be presenting on the evaluation of a transportation incentive program for affordable housing residents. Roshan is a transportation demand specialist at the Portland Bureau of Transportation, bringing expertise in both the transportation and public health fields with a deep commitment to transportation justice. She manages Adaptive Biketown, Biketown for All, and the Transportation Wallet Pilot for residents of affordable housing. Huijun is a PhD student in the Toulon School of Urban Studies and Planning here at Portland State. She has a master's degree in social work from Washington University in St. Louis. Her research now primarily focuses on transportation equity and gentrification impacts on accessibility among marginalized populations and communities. Nathan is a research associate at Portland State University's Center for Urban Studies. He conducts research on impacts of active transportation and transit equity, new bicycle infrastructure and programs, cycling behavior and attitudes, shared use mobility, including car sharing and bike share, and the connection between land use and transportation. John is the Sustainable Transportation Program Manager at TWRAH at Portland State. He is an active in research related to sustainable and equitable transportation, particularly in the areas of emerging technologies, e-bikes, bike share, transit, and the relationship between transportation and public health. Before jumping into today's seminar, I'd like to let you know about a couple of our upcoming seminars. On April 23rd, just a week from today, we're very excited to have Ashton Simpson, Scott Kocher, and a third person that I'm forgetting the name of who's not on the slide yet, presenting their work on Oregon Walk's pedestrian crash report that gets into causes, effects, and recommendations on pedestrian safety. And then following that, we have Dr. Stephen Howland, an alum of Portland State University, who will be talking about his dissertation research on transportation and gentrification. So I hope we see and hear some of you at those seminars. A quick overview on what to expect here. So our speakers are going to present for about 40 to 45 minutes, and then we will do question and answer at the end of that. Please use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen to ask questions. You can enter those at any time during the presentation. We will be saving all of the sort of substantive questions until the end. And if we do run out of time for all of your questions, we will be sharing them with the speakers afterwards. As you've noticed, we have enabled closed captioning. Apparently, if you're not seeing it, you must click the closed caption feature on your control panel to see the live closed captioning that's automatic. We are also recording today's webinar and we'll be posting it on our website later today along with the presentation slides. And then finally, if you are tracking professional development hours, this webinar is eligible for 1 hour of continuing education credit. with that, I am going to hand it over to our presenters, and I believe Roshan is our first presenter today.
Great. Is everyone able to see my screen?
Yes, yes, perfect.
Okay, great. Okay, thanks so much, Jennifer. I am so glad to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to share about this pilot. We, postponed last month and thought we lost some of y'all, but I see a strong showing here. So thanks for your patience, and I'm really excited to share. So like Jennifer mentioned, I am Roshan Kurian. I'm a TDM specialist in PBOT's Active Transportation and Safety Division. I work on our some of our transportation equity programming. Specifically, I'm on the Bike Town team overseeing Bike Town for All and adaptive Bike Town programs. I'm also on the team that helps run our Transportation Ambassador, or PBOT's volunteer program, part of our division equity group, as well as our Transportation Justice Steering Committee for PBOT. I've also had the joy of being program lead for the Transportation Wallet for Residents of Affordable Housing Pilot, which is why we're here today. So I will be sharing with you some of the program development overall lessons learned. I'll describe the different methods of delivery, some of the variability there. But first, we're going to start with what Transportation Wallet Pilot is and the history of how it came to be. And so just a quick disclaimer, this pilot is very dense at times. It was very dynamic, constantly changing, full of challenges and opportunities that forced us to be flexible and adapt. So I'm going to try my hardest to not go down some rabbit holes of detail, but feel free to note anything or any specific questions you arrive at, and then we'll try to address them later in the Q&A. So first, what are we talking about today? What is the Affordable Housing Transportation Wallet Pilot? So this pilot provided free access to a package of transportation options or incentives to folks living in affordable housing. PBOT partnered with 7 housing organizations across Portland to identify 7 sites or buildings where affordable housing residents lived, where we could hold transportation fairs. And so we held these 7 transportation fairs in partnerships with these housing organizations. We helped residents sign up for all of the different transportation options and qualify for low-income programs all in one step. That was the dream. So in our transportation wallet, we offered $308 for free to use towards TriMet, e-scooter companies, taxis, TNCs, and Car2Go. Rest in peace. Additionally, an annual Bike Town for All membership was included, and gift cards or promo codes for free Uber, Lyft rides were given as well. So now we'll step back a bit and see how this pilot sits within the existing transportation wallet program in parking districts and how it made the transportation wallet family a little bit bigger. So the storyline for this project actually started with some regulatory requirements on new multifamily housing developments, as all good stories start. Certain developments were required to have a TDM plan, which included subsidized transportation option incentives for tenants of the new buildings. So originally, affordable housing units were exempt from that TDM requirement. So therefore, PBOT staff took this as an opportunity to pilot and test what a transportation incentive program could look like for folks that live in affordable housing. Knowing that transportation is the second highest household cost behind housing. So we found a way to expand the transportation wallet model outside of the parking districts, which is where the original program started, and is run by my colleagues, Sarah Goforth and Michael Espinosa, who you might all know. This work started before I came on as a TDM specialist and involved the pictured folks with the crowned colleague, Liz Horman, serving as the original program lead, and I served as support as I came on. So you'll see some faces of some of the folks involved with the pilot throughout the presentation, and that's for the purpose of highlighting how many people were integral to making this pilot a success. There were a lot of staff investment and collaboration across our little bubbles at PBOT and the city, and it definitely was not a one-person show, even though I'm the one presenting on it and usually hold responsibility for speaking to it. There are a lot of folks involved. And just for folks who are interested in the funding of it, one-time funding of $100,000 from our general transportation funding, and then $150,000 from parking operations through TDM programming partnerships. So how did we select the sites to work with? So Liz and I connected with 6 well-known affordable housing organizations to socialize the idea of the affordable housing pilot. We put out a letter of interest and received interest from 7 housing organizations. You can see that the different housing organizations across Portland that we partnered with. It was P.C.R.I, Home Forward, Hacienda CDC, Catholic Charities, Human Solutions, Rose CDC, and Reach CDC. And so when Liz and I were in our initial stages of research and information gathering, we visualized this magical tool that would show us all the transportation options across Portland in relation to affordable housing sites. So our colleague, Corinne Montana, created this wonderful tool for us to think through how to consider the barriers to transportation access across the city, taking into consideration our racial equity map. And so at this point, this map is a bit out of date, but it was a great tool in figuring out how to tailor each transportation fare for the organizations. And so we continued our information gathering with our housing organizations and the residents to ensure that we were creating a pilot that truly served the needs of these communities. We had meetings with resident coordinators. We came to resident events like barbecues and bingo nights to gauge folks' interests in the transportation wallet and what kind of things would be helpful, what kind of barriers we'd be facing. So we came across some barriers or opportunities that I will just briefly mention. So the capacity of housing organization staff to deliver, to have direct contact with residents. So we decided to work directly with resident coordinators that oversee the assigned buildings. And here are some of our lovely resident coordinators from Hacienda, Home Forward, Hollywood East, and P.C.R.I, who work directly with residents to answer questions and provide some of that follow-up. Another barrier that came up, many of our residents are unbanked or underbanked or unwilling to link their fixed incomes to micromobility. And so we worked with our partners in Treasury to come up with a solution, a prepaid card solution through US Bank. And that's how we were able to deliver the $308 for folks to use them across the different transportation methods. And that card was restricted to transportation usage only. And then the next barrier we had was safety in the right-of-way and consideration for families and children. And so that's when even though we were focused on active transportation, we decided to include TNC and taxis to accommodate for that. And then accessibility, language needs, physical, mental, emotional needs, technology needs around serving this population. Many of those things came up that we had to address. So a few notable dates from our timeline. So fall 2018 is when the magic started. In November 2018, we started working with City Treasury, PBOT Accounting to develop this concept of a prepaid card for transportation usage only. And during that time, that's when we were gathering information from the housing organizations. January 2019, we put a letter of interest out to housing partners. We had met with six of them, and then we received letters from 7. March 2019, Liz leaves for maternity, which is not on here. So our team changes a little bit, and Wiley O'Neill jumps in to help with on the ground work of connecting directly to residents and meticulous tracking and follow-up. And Steve Hoyt-Macbeth has been overseeing the program and helping with our funding. So transportation fair season kicked off in August of 2019 with 7 transportation fairs held over the course of a month and a half. And then we started check-ins, and then COVID hit here in March, but the end of the pilot was in May. So it made it very difficult for us to engage around promoting, our bike town or any of the other, just promoting moving around in general during a pandemic. And so then we started, our PSU jumped in when helped with our evaluation support and brought us through to this year. And so now we are developing a program or another pilot for this year for 2021 based off of some of the findings that we heard from PSU and through some of the feedback we got from our resident coordinators. And so we've also got a one-time funding for additional TWRAH. So just to get folks going again, we've been adding $56 to all of our existing participants on their HOP card so they can start moving about once they feel comfortable. Here are all the housing partners and service providers, housing partners and all the service providers we worked with in order to put on a transportation fair. And then here are all of the lovely faces of PBOT that offered their time and expertise at the transportation fairs, including some of our summer works interns, our wonderful CSAs, TDM folks, regulatory staff who represented PDX Wave, which is a program offering wheelchair and mobility device friendly cars through TNC and taxi partnerships. All these folks provide a range of skills and support. We had in-house Spanish skills, problem solving, flexibility, interpersonal skills galore, all the things necessary to make a pilot a success. So this is what happens at a transportation fair to deliver a transportation wallet here on the left. A resident will come in and check in at table 1 that's marked with the red 1, and you complete a survey. You pick up a survey to complete. And then you go to table 2, you hand in your survey, and then you pick up the transportation wallet, which included the prepaid card as well as some other goodies and information about it. And then the person would at that point be told you can walk around and within the room and talk to the different service providers and sign up for whatever service you were interested in. If they only wanted to do TriMet, if they only took the bus or took the MAX, then we would direct them to TriMet to make sure they had their low-income fare honored citizen card and photo taken, and that they signed up for an annual pass. That's where the $308 amount came from. It paid for an annual pass for TriMet. And then we had staff around to help folks with other information and guide them around. So one thing that I'll get into that's a little bit in the weeds, but the delivery of the US Bank prepaid card through different methods. So this showcases the successes and shortcomings between the different methods in the site. So we use the US Bank prepaid card product that we developed with Treasury. And because this was a new program with a large chunk of money being distributed to the public, we needed to ensure a secure new process for money flow and tracking with accounting and Treasury. So that took some time, trust building, testing these different methods to get to a place where all parties felt comfortable. And so most of the fairs, 6 of them, did delivery method A, where we gave them the prepaid card, and then money was added after 1 to 2 weeks. Delivery method B sent the funded cards at a later time after the transportation fair. That proved to be the least successful. And then delivery method C, our last transportation fair at P.C.R.I, showed the most success of how delivery was intended to have a funded, activated card ready to go and be used that day. And just note, this is different than our transportation wallet for parking districts, where there's a set amount for each service. There's no use of a prepaid card in that program. And so I'm going to just quickly go through the different fairs. Again, Human Solutions at Arbor Glen, delivery method A. This was actually very successful. We had a low number of participants, but they all used their card. They all used the funding on their card. So even though we had 35 participants total, it was successful in closing the loop of usage. Reach CDC at Gray's Landing. We served 3 buildings, Gray's Landing, Bronow Apartments, and the Admiral. It was mostly largely elderly and disabled population. There was a line out in the hallway that was uncomfortable for some residents. It led to people feeling rushed through the fair processing. But this was still delivery method A. There were 67 total fair participants, and then we had 4 people off of the wait list. We learned from this fair that residents already have a subsidy for streetcar passes purchased from the building directly. The next one, Home Forward at Hollywood East. This was by far our largest building right near Hollywood Transit Center, serving the red, blue, green MAX lines with easy access to the 12, 75, and 77 buses. Largely elderly, disabled, and veteran population, great fair turnout, waitlist participation with over 79 fair visitors and 48 waitlist participants, so 127 participants from Hollywood East. And our resident coordinator, Nikki Foland of Home Forward, did a great job of educating, encouraging the residents of the program. Even with the location, maybe due to the folks that we were serving, we saw a strong use of taxi and TNC service. Our next one, Hacienda at Villa de Clara Vista. It was originally open only to Villa de Clara Vista residents, but due to slow start, we opened it up to all Hacienda properties. So that included Clara Vista townhomes, Villa de Sueños, Villa de Mariposas, Los Jardines de La Paz, and Vista de Rosas, 6 total. And so community members also rose to the occasion here, because we had mostly Latino and African immigrant communities that we were serving. So we needed a lot of translation support. And so folks from the community really jumped in and helped with that. And then this one, we had a lot of folks wanting TriMet support, and we didn't have TriMet representation from TriMet there, but we had our staff from PBOT representing. So there was quite the line and a lot of excitement at that particular fair. And then the next fair, Catholic Charities of Oregon at Kateri Park, same delivery method of cards funded later, 51 day of participants, 20 participants off the wait list. Here, we had a lot of translation and struggles, and we relied on family members to translate as needed, most of the time, kids or children of the family. So just recognizing a more robust plan for in-person translation services. Our next one, Rose CDC at Orchards of 82nd. So this was delivery method B. We gave the cards, we had the fair, and then we said we would mail them cards that were funded. And the folks here were primarily immigrant, young family residents. We had Apano helping with on-site translation as needed. That was super helpful. And there were just a lot of lost cards and follow-up, and our resident coordinator had to manage multiple buildings and made it very difficult to follow up with all of the participants. So we had kind of a low turnout or success rate there. The last fair of the series was P.C.R.I. at Beatrice, Morrow, and this was the last delivery method where we distributed and funded cards on the day of the fair. They were activated, ready to go. They served residents of 4 buildings: Beatrice, Morrow, Park Terrace, Apartments, Maya Angelou, and M. Carter. This was the most streamlined, successful. Like I mentioned, residents in this community had a great understanding of the program, shared mobility technology, mostly Black Portlanders with many young families. So just really great success at P.C.R.I. So through our wait list, 23% of our pilot participants came through our wait list. We had 375 signups at the fairs. And then we had the largest 48 from Hollywood East for our wait list. And then from November to January of last year, or of the first year, we did our best to try and get participants to make that first trip or transaction. So that way we were confirming that they had their card, understood how to use it when paying for their preferred commuting mode. We encouraged them to try something new and see how it affects how they get around, and work closely with the resident coordinators to create the best touch point for users who had yet to use their prepaid card. And we also manually submitted TRIMA annual pass forms for several users, eliminating the multiple barrier process for participants to go downtown. So here's a quick snapshot of numbers, but Nathan, John, and Eugene will go into more detail on those numbers shortly. So we held the 7 fairs for 375 residents for 17 low-income housing buildings and able to sign up an additional 112 via our wait list for a total of 487 people served total, with Home Forward being our front runner for interest and signups in the program. Our goal was to have around 70 wallets per housing organization. So this shows kind of the flexibility and how we were able to accommodate need. TriMet was by far our most used system. I think I'll stop here and pass it over to PSU to share on some of the findings.
Thanks, Roshan. Hi, I'm John, and while we're switching over, Nathan is going to be driving the presentation. So I'm going to give just a brief overview of what we did as part of the evaluation, and then hand it over to Weijun, who's going to kind of go over some of the results, and then Nathan's going to end and talk about the findings and what we saw as part of the project. And first of all, I'd just like to say thank PBOT and Roshan for the opportunity to participate on this really important and innovative project. And it's been great working with them. And then also thank them for their support, funding support, and also NITSE, the National Institute of Transportation and Communities, for the funding for this project. And then finally, I'd like to thank the residential coordinators and the residents themselves, who were really important in getting this, letting us help do our work. So, so Nathan, go to the first slide. And just wanted to highlight this again. These are the affordable housing developments that we looked at. And I just wanted to highlight, there are 3 Hacienda, Rose, and Human Solutions that are on the east side, and we'll talk a little bit about that in our results and findings on how the people in those developments may have used their wallets differently. One thing, just notice the red outline is the existing, or was the existing service area for Biketown. It has now expanded because Biketown has expanded in Portland. So it's something to think about as we look at results. Next slide. So here's the timeline of the project that Roshan already showed you a little bit. But so of the 475 people that were participating in the fairs and the pre-surveys, we were able to collect results from our post-survey of 278, which is 56% of response rate, which is pretty good. But of course, COVID was hit right before we started collecting responses, so we had to switch and kind of do a little mix of collection based on mailings and over the phone. So that made it a little bit more difficult to kind of get those responses, but I think we were able to pull in some good information here. So next slide. So, the study was, is not designed to be representative sample of the people living in affordable housing, but it is definitely representative of the people that receive the wallet. So you can see here, the mix of ethnicities and races that were participating in the project. Certainly, a large percentage of people speak multiple languages or not English within the home. So it did make it a little bit more difficult. And luckily, Weijun and others were able to communicate and talk to people about their experiences. Next slide. And finally, I just wanted to kind of highlight here about basically these people have low vehicle ownership and really are highly transit dependent or needing of mobile options. And that's why the wallet is such an interesting program to provide. And then this issue around smartphone ownership, 80%, and this is kind of what we see nationally across different income groups, but still there's 20% of the people that do not have active smartphone with cell plan, data plan options. And so you can't really have, a only app-based solution. So you need to have other ways in which you can provide these kind of services or kind of benefits to people still. So anyway, so that's the demographics. I'm going to switch over to Wijun here to talk about results.
Okay, thank you, John. So first, let's look at the general usage of the wallet. So this chart shows the sign up and usage percentages of different mode services with the program. So overall, the percentages of the respondents who sign up for the TWRAH reduced fare program and Uber and Lyft services were higher than the percentage of those who sign up for Biketown and e-scooter share services. As to the mode usage, 90% of respondents used the wallet on TWRAH services. Over half of the respondents used Uber or Lyft. We can see the program substantially help participants use TWRAH, including bus, mass, and streetcar. But we also see there's a gap between the sign up and usage of the services such as Uber, Lyft, bike share, and e-scooter services. So the sign up percentages of those modes were higher than the usage. A further understanding of this gap may help the transportation agency to improve the usage of those modes. Next slide. Based on the information from PBOT, this graph showed the percentage of participants signing up for different TWRAH reduced fare programs. So in general, over 80% of the participants sign up for the TWRAH reduced fare programs. For annual reduced fare pass, it costed full value of the wallet, so which was $308. Monthly deducted fare was $28, deducted monthly from the wallet. And the regular reduced fare was 50% of paper rate. So we can see 17% of the respondents did not sign up any reduced fare program. We can also found that people who signed up for the annual TWRAH program were indeed more likely to use TWRAH frequently, but their usage of the other services was limited since the annual pass used up the whole value. Next slide. So regarding the trip purpose for each mode that participants use with the wallet, we can see shopping, like including grocery shopping and errand trips, were the most frequent trips type for people who reported taking trips on TWRAH, Uber, and Text with the wallet. 35% of e-scooter users also reported shopping and errand trips. For bike share and e-scooter usage, recreation and exercise were the primary trip purposes. Also, TWRAH and taxi played an important role in helping respondents go to and from the medical appointments. And a sizable percentage of participants used various transportation modes for social recreation and dining trips. The percentage of work, school, or work-related trips for TWRAH users was similar to those for Uber or Lyft users. But based on the feedback from the survey and the cost structures of the services, TWRAH would be more of a daily work mode, and ride-hail service would be a way of making one-off type trips. So this finding could be useful for consideration when developing programs and targeting particular trip types for these populations. Next slide. So we also found some advantage of the program according to some perceptual questions on the survey, like saving the cost. So 97% of them agree that they save money on normal transportation costs with the wallet, and 95% of them agree that managing their monthly budget was less stressful. So when we asked the transportation service users if they will still use the services after they spend all the money on the wallet, around 50 to 60% of TWRAH and Uber, Lyft, and taxi users said they will use the services less after spend all the money on the wallet. And 47% bike share users and 57% of e-scooter users said they will no longer use these modes. So this suggests that the financial support of this program encouraged the use of certain modes among the participants. So next. We also noticed the people increased their mode use frequency. We asked a question about if they use most services more due to the wallet. The majority of each mode's user reported they use the mode more often with the wallet. In order to understand the mode substitution behavior, we also asked them what modes they would have used. Nathan, click one more, yes. So the majority, so in order to know the substitution behavior, we asked them like what modes they would use if they haven't have the wallet. So over 6% of them said like they would walk more, and 48% said they would take in TRIMET more, and 26% said that they would driven more. Next one. So beside mode use frequency, we also want to know if respondents try to use new modes with the program. We ask if they agree that they try to use new modes like bike share or e-scooter that they've never used before. And yet half of the respondents agreed the statement. Then we look into the differences in the mode usage between those who agree and those who disagree with the statement. And we find that the proportion of using all these modes from those who agree were higher than those who disagree with the statement. So this shows that the program was a good opportunity to expose participants to new modes, especially bike share and e-scooter share services. Next one. Another advantage is the transportation fare component mentioned before of the program. So about 80% of them attending the transportation fair. These two charts shows the mode sign up and usage differences between those who went to the fair and those who did not went to the fair. We can see the transportation fair attendees were more likely to sign up and use the transportation services. The results suggest that the participant benefited from attending those fairs where they could learn about how to sign up and use different modes. And also respondents who did not go to the fair did not use the bike share at all, even if 17 of them have signed up for the bike share program. So the usage of e-scooters among those who did not attend the fair also very minimal. So one possibility would be they're not familiar with how to use these modes, or they might not have known they could use the services with a wallet. And also self-selections of attending those fairs for those who already have a high intention to sign up those and use those services could be possible as well. So next, Nathan will present the findings about how different groups of the participants use the program.
Great, thanks, Huijun. So I am going to present on a few findings about how some program participants used the wallet differently than others, which I think is something that could help understand a little bit about how to target the program, or where there may be, particular participant subgroups that need to be reached out to, or and so I'm going to look into where they live, some differences by age, by language, and by gender. So to start, as John mentioned, those East Portland residents in Hacienda, Rose CDC, and Human Solutions. So we broke the population into the East Portland and the other participants who are closer into downtown. And as you can see here, for the most part, people reported taking more trips, using the wallet for appointments, added, increased ability to get around. But one thing that was interesting was that East Portland residents were more likely to use the transportation wallet for work or for school trips. So those bolded items there. That may suggest that there were things that they could get to with the wallet and for work and trip and school that that other residents maybe already could get to, or were getting to by other means. To dig into that a little bit, we looked at the usage of different modes, and one of the things that we found was that ride-hail trips were used more by these participants in East Portland. So this bar chart shows, in particular, the grayed out portion on the right are the people that didn't take any trips with ride-hail. So for the East Portland residents, only 31% didn't take ride-hail, compared to 56% of the other participants. And where's that made up for? Well, so they were taking TriMet less, they were taking taxi trips less. And again, it may indicate that Uber and Lyft were filling a gap for these residents that other services were not meeting for them. Moving on, in the interest of, I want to get through some slides here pretty quickly and have some time for question and answer. So older participants also had some differences. They were more likely to sign up for the TriMet annual pass. And so again, these moving to the right with these bars are the older participants, and the far right are the 65 plus. They were also less likely to use ride hail, bike share, or e-scooter. And so, maybe not surprising, but just kind of demonstrates some of the differences in how people were using the transportation wallet. Non-English speakers were more likely to sign up for the TriMet annual reduced fare program at the transportation fair. We did find out that a lot of the people who didn't sign up at the fair were already signed up. So maybe this is an indication that the fair was a particularly good opportunity for these people. And again, the boxes there from left to right are only speak English at home, speak English and other languages, and on the right are they speak just other languages at home. They were also less likely to sign up for ride hail, bike share, or e-scooters. We don't exactly know why. It may be that they were less used to this population, but it may also be that understanding the program was more challenging, and they opted not to because of that. So I think there's some more to dig into there. Next, we did look at differences by gender and found that women were more likely to use ride hail and less likely to use transit, bike share, or e-scooters. And this may be related to level of comfort or sense of safety with using these modes, and the potentially ride hail offers something particular for women to feel safe with. Again, these just offer some opportunities to think about how people are using the systems, and where the transit agencies and where PBOT and the transportation wallet can try to engage or cater to the particular uses that people are using it for. One last thing I want to touch on before wrapping up is that we did ask a question about what are the best things about the transportation wallet, and we put together one of these word charts that kind of shows some of the key things that people touched on. But I'm going to read a few of the key quotes that we got. And I'm going to try to do it pretty quickly, so I apologize if these are kind of fast. But on transportation, when I lost my car, and again, these are quotes from people in the survey, when I lost my car, I was able to get to work and keep my job by using the wallet. I was able to safely transport my daughter to school and get groceries. And another person said, I feel feeling secure that I can get around even when broke. Saving money. So somebody said, I saved monthly money to help me budget with a little bit more flexibility. Another person, it got me out of emergencies. For example, my son was going to an interview for a new school and we had no way to get there. So we took an Uber to get there using transportation wallet funds. We also took my mom to a doctor's appointment when the bus was not running using the transportation wallet card. Related to flexibility, when I was in a bind and got too many groceries and needed to get home somehow, I could call a cab. And another person said, it gave me confidence when traveling that I'd always be able to get there and back. Another person wrote, and I don't know why that's a little, oh no. I lost my PowerPoint, I apologize. Let me pull that back up. Turns out that having animations in your slides are not always great. Well, let me say I was about at the end of my presentation, and I do have a couple of points that I want to hit on. One is that the transportation wallet, as you can see, offered an opportunity. Well, and here it's coming back. For some people, it offered a mobility option, increased mobility and increased transportation options. for some people, it offered exposure to new modes and services that they maybe hadn't tried before. For some people, it offered them a little bit of extra money to help budget. And so, what is the goal of the program? Can it really serve all three of those? It seems like in this case, for different participants, it did meet those different benefits. And so, I don't know whether PBOT would say it's more focused on one or the other or one of the three, but again, it did meet those for different participants, and so that seems like a positive thing. In terms of ongoing engagement, there is a need for both current participants and future participants to, I think increased language assistance could help some people, improve their, how they use the program. And then we did notice that a lot of people did have, some funding left on the card, and so making people aware of that and helping them, find ways to use it if they're having trouble or if they forgot about it, or and I think with the pandemic, that certainly affected a lot of the way people think about transportation and getting around. And then finally, helping people understand the different services. It seems like the TriMet fare capping structure is something that if people are going to spend this funding, having a firm grasp on exactly what that means, and that maybe the annual pass doesn't make sense if you just pay per ride, and it eventually adds up to an unlimited pass. So with that, and thank you for bearing with me there, I just want to say thank you from the evaluation team, and hand it back over to Roshan for a few closing thoughts, and we'll get into the Q&A.
Yeah, I'm just going to close us off with some lessons learned on our side. We saw that affordable housing partners are effective TDM partners. The resident coordinators played a major role in connecting with residents in real life. That did require quite a bit of support on their side as well as our side. The language needs, partner recommendation on language accommodation was not quite adequate. So we need more communication materials that are maybe graphic heavy, or we just need more support in person. The prepaid card, debit card, the good. It was flexible within a family could use it, and within modal choices, it helped the underbanked, unbanked population and folks that feared linking their existing bank accounts. We were able to actually pull back funds and redistribute if we needed to, or if somebody was just not part of the program or they moved or something like that. We were able to track usage on the back end, which was great for us. The bad, it was a huge concern with treasury and accounting, with funds management, which slowed kind of our program development. There was communication between the bank, the user, PBOT as the card manager for this program, not knowing who to communicate with to get information about the program or about the card or about their balance on their card. And then there were just a lot of meetings, a lot of things between all of the partners, so a lot of time resources involved. Collaborations, although filled with red tape and roadblocks along the way, can be very successful. And then one thing, the survey was a bit long. We heard that a lot. We need to be able to learn fewer things more definitively than try to do the most, but we got some wonderful data. So can't complain too much there. And then moving forward, I mentioned we just added HOP credit for existing TriMet users to get them going again for this year, $56 or potential of a three-month unlimited pass. Or 2-month unlimited pass, that's incorrect. So how can we continue to engage our new housing partners? So with this nice riding season and with Bike Town for All and e-bikes, we are hoping to do some engagement around Bike Town, getting folks really signed up for Bike Town and e-scooters. So we'll be trying to see as soon as it's safe to do, if we can do pop-ups or build from the model of transportation fairs and come directly to to the residents and see if we can sign people up and get them some comfort in using the app and using the bikes themselves. I think that we saw that there's the success with that. And then connecting to our other PBOT activities, Sunday Parkways and Smart Trips, and figuring out a better delivery method what we've been doing, that's something that's more scalable. And then figuring out a way to package a train the trainer. So there are videos and there's more information for our service providers and for our housing partner providers to be able to come back and know what to do when the residents come to them with different questions. And so now we're also sharing findings, like right now, with our stakeholders, partners, to advocate for long-term or a permanent funding stream. I think we see a need and we see how it connects to our equity and climate goals across the city. And so the last the past funding has been kind of a one-time finding here. So trying to figure out a way to create a program that is long-term and that can continue to serve our affordable housing residents. So with that, we'll close it off and kick it back to Jennifer to do our Q&A. Thanks a
Great,
lot.
thank you so much. We've had a number of questions come in, and there's been a few that I'm going to ask Roshan to answer first, all about the cards and the Visa card, I think in particular. There's already been a clarification on chat that the card could only be spent at certain transportation service providers. So you couldn't take it to Safeway and buy groceries or something like that. But if you could clarify, there were questions about sort of how people could check balance on it, why US Bank, was that just an existing relationship? And then also, if you were to do it again, would you use the prepaid debit card again?
Yeah, so US Bank, our Treasury had an existing relationship with them, and we had done our own research and reached out to some prepaid card services and not really had a very good response. And so that was kind of the one that worked out for us, and we were able to use different products or come up with different products for different programs at PBOT. So that was kind of how US Bank was chosen. And then our program specifically restricted to transportation usage through these merchant category codes. And so there's a group of codes that each merchant has that is, if it's within the transportation codes, then it's able to be accepted. If it's iTunes or Fred Meyer or something else, then it will be rejected, and it'll show us that on the back end that the charge was denied and where it was denied from. And then what was the other bit?
How could a user check the balance on that prepaid debit card?
Sure. And so they could call the number on the back and they could check the balance there. A lot of folks lost the card, and then so there was some confusion there because we were the only ones that could resend them a card through our program. But so some people got confused and lost the card and would call customer service for US Bank, and it would get kind of confusing there if they didn't have the right communication. But they could check the balance by calling the number on the back.
Okay.
Or calling us.
Would you use these again, or is there the potential for an all-in-one? Because there was also the HOP card, which is the transit card. So is there any potential that all this just be on one card?
That is the dream, right? That I think is the card or the key that unlocks all of the city transportation options. That would be really great. So this was really accommodating for the unbanked piece of it. It's the money card. It's not quite the card that gives you unlocks all of the things, right? So in San Francisco, like a Clipper card, essentially, or a HOP card could unlock all of the different options, and it could be loaded that way. That would be ideal, but unfortunately, we're not there yet, and we are thinking about using the prepaid card, more to accommodate families. And at this point, I think we have options for all of the service providers to to add cash or to do something without a prepaid card. And so we would just be explaining that to folks. But if there was a family of 4 that needed to share it and have one, their kid ride bike town, or everybody ride bike town, and everybody put money on their hop card and things like that, it's just a way to share funds. And so we're just trying to see if, for instance, if somebody wants to sign up for TriMet, now we have the accessibility to add credit for through Ready Credit and TriMet. So we can directly, do Ready Credit, or we could directly do TriMet credit and then not have them have to fuss with a prepaid card. And so those are some of the lessons learned.
Great. So for the PSU team, there's been a couple questions related to data on trips. And so do you have any information about sort of the time of day that people were making trips, and if that was different by mode? And then also the idea of new trips, like did this generate new travel to fulfill a need?
I can start. So let's see. In terms of time of day, we didn't have data on when the trips happened during the day. We do have some anecdotal feedback, or not, I guess not. So, in terms of people writing and telling us why they took certain types of trips. And there were definitely some people saying that, they needed to get home late at night or after a service had stopped working, and that's why they used ride hail. So that definitely, I think, is for some people why they use that. And we don't have a way quantitatively to pull that out from, for other people in terms of if it was that or if it was some other benefit of, being able to get somewhere outside of a transit trip or, line or time. And then in terms of new trips, we do ask, if people took those modes more than they had before. And so we do have some, and in most cases, the people that were using the wallet, as Huijin showed, did say that they were using, so, what her slide was showing of people that told us that they had used each of those modes, what percent said that they were using it more than before. And so for most people, they did say that, but we weren't tracking them over time, and so it's hard to know exactly how many new trips or trips by type were added.
Yeah, I would just add quickly that I think it would be something that would be great to do on a follow-up study or related to these type of projects is a travel diary, but not only for the individual that received the benefit but for the family. One of the constraints of this study was not be able to get total trips from these partners, from transit, from scooter share, from bike share, to actually get trip usage and from those accounts. So I think it's a really interesting opportunity for further research on that point.
And a little related to that, a question came in about the survey itself. Was it, well, it was already mentioned that you did some of it via phone, but the ones that were not via phone, was it a paper survey or online or what?
We had a paper survey initially developed, and the intention was that we would do on-site visits to all of the housing communities and do paper surveys there. We converted it to an online Qualtrics survey and used that. The majority of our respondents actually were over the phone. So we emailed it out to everyone that we had email addresses for, which wasn't, it was only a portion of the participants, but we had more phone numbers. Most people did it over the phone, and Huijun did many of those surveys. We did then send it. Some people requested a paper version, and we sent it out. And some people did take it when we sent the email, or requested to take it online after, rather than do it over the phone. So yeah.
Okay. And then I think one last quick question for Roshan that came in on the chat was for the other, the non-TriMet providers, were there any reduced rates or were people paying the regular Uber fare and e-scooter fare and et cetera?
For Uber and Lyft, there were no reduced rates. For the e-scooter companies and Biketown for All, they were part of the low-income program, so they did receive the reduced rate. Yeah.
Okay.
And there was no data sharing agreements either. I think that was another thing that popped up. There was no data sharing agreements. We just were able to see usage, like the money that was spent on the back end of the prepaid card.
Okay.
Could make some
Great.
assumptions there.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are at 12:30, so we are going to respect folks' time and roughly on time. I want to remind you to sign up for our newsletter if you have not already. And when you exit today's webinar, you'll get a short survey that we would appreciate you responding to. Again, we'll be posting the recording and slides later on today on our website. And I really want to appreciate our speakers today. I think it was a great example of sort of how to lessons learned from implementing a program like this, very insightful, and then also some of the impacts that these programs can have. So I'm looking forward to I believe there'll be a final research report coming out in the near future on it. So thank you very much, and thank you for everyone for joining us.